You're tuned in to Talon, 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 Talon it like it is. All right, you're tuned in to Talon it like it is with Talon Thomas, and I'm in the studio today with a very special guest. I'm in here today with Samuel Miller, or as people up and down the I-5 corridor know him, Big Sam Miller.
It's great. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for coming, and I think all the people out there are probably say thank you out loud, and we'll be able to hear it. It'll be a Tinkerbell kind of thing where we'll feel it. So they call Sam Big Sam, and that's not one of those ironic, unfunny nicknames where they call the big guy Tiny and the little guy Big Guy, because those names are tricking people and I don't like them. But Sam here is named Big Sam because he's a very big guy. Can you tell these people how big you are so they can imagine your size?
Like you want them to tell me. You want me to tell them like my measurements, like
in
how
American
big I am?
heights and weights.
Oh,
yes.
Well, I'm 6'6" and I'm about 330 pounds.
All right. So for those of you that are kind of math-minded and enjoy your numbers, you can picture that. For those of you who are a little more conceptual, you can imagine if you can imagine him as someone who I could defeat in combat, but that if I did, it would be kind of a boss battle. Very large. It'd be kind of probably towards the end of the second act, kind of like the guy with the metal balls in Wild Wild West that Will Smith has to fight. It would be a tough fight for me.
Do you think you could beat me?
Well, and we've talked about this in past episodes. Maybe you might have missed those particular episodes. But as a youth, I was taken under the wing of some Buddhist monks that taught me the ways of combat and the ways of fighting. And so I have an undefeated record.
How many fights have you been in?
Oh, geez, I would need to take my socks off to count. No, but hundreds, if not thousands.
Wow.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't have the figures in front of me, but we can get those out. We can put those up on the web if we get them. Do you have them in front of you?
I think it's like 2275.
2275. That is interesting. That I've been in 2275 fights, which is also the year that the Illuminati is planning. Well, I think we all know what happens in 2275. So I always wonder as a regular sized man, kind of someone who's the right size. Like
to say that like you're the right size and I'm the wrong size. Like I don't think there's like a right and a wrong size for people.
Oh,
like,
no, and I hope audience, I hope if you need to rewind to clear this up, I never said anything. Anyone was the wrong size. I just simply stated that I am the right size.
By saying that you're the right size, you create like a contrast. That like if there's a right size, then there's a wrong size. And by you saying that I'm the right size, and it's like we're having this conversation and then this interview,
if you did connect those dots, maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a logic to that.
But Big's not wrong.
Okay. And you know what? If you have an opinion on that, please feel free to tweet in, email us, let us know what you think the right size to be is.
I don't know, man. You're like an average size. And I'm just like a lot bigger.
And isn't average kind of what we all strive for in every aspect of our life?
But I don't have a choice. Like I was like, I can't be any smaller than I am.
And I'm right there with you. I totally agree with just specifically that last part of what you said.
But Talon, do you have any questions for your guest?
I do actually. Well, and what I was trying to get to before we got kind of mired in this quagmire.
Sorry, I just thought that you were like saying that I'm too big, and I don't know. I'm in touch, man. Just ask me questions, man.
Well, I'm so glad that you're finally letting me do that, because what I'm wondering is, as someone who is such a large man, do you ever regret being born in the modern time when that's really just a way to be uncomfortable on airplanes? You think about if you were William Wallace or Genghis Khan or Peter the Great. There was a time when being the biggest guy around, you could run a whole country.
I I do. I think about it. I think about how hard it is to think, and that if I was born before, then I wouldn't have to think as much, and I could just focus on being big and mean, and I could just take whatever I needed. And like I might not even feel that bad about myself because I'd probably just adjust to that environment, I guess. But yeah, I think about it. Yeah.
And you know what? If they tried to pass that law, I would vote for it. If you call it the Big Sam bill and you say big guy gets what he wants.
But I could take. I mean, I could take your stuff. You know.
Well, I think, I think the people would like to find out the outcome of that, but I don't think they will today because, why waste that on an audio podcast when pay-per-view HBO exists? Maybe if we get some interest, hashtag Sam v Talon, get it going, and so will we. That is a promise that I guarantee. And, I want to talk about, though, is that, even though you're not the king of a country, you are you do fill a bit of a leadership role. Sam is an up and coming comedian who runs a comedy show night event, which I have not had the privilege of attending, but I understand people very much enjoy. And it's called, it has a really gross, the name is, I don't want to say that. Sam, can you say the name of your comedy show?
It's vomiting, man.
Oh,
It's
God.
just like, it's not that bad. It's like a lot of people throw up, and it stands. I mean, it's at a place called the Voyeur, and it just stands for Voyeur Open Mic Comedy, and we turned the D to a T, and that's how we got the name Vomity. People think that I wanted to have like a vomit themed show, and I didn't, and nobody's ever vomited there, and it's not like extraordinarily like gross comedy. It's just, I just thought it sounded better. I wanted a name that people remembered, and I didn't know. I've never seen it have this kind of effect on anybody.
Well, it's just, I like what you're doing because I think that comedy is a very important place for speech to be free. But I think that
I agree.
yes,
I
and
love
so,
free speech.
but sometimes when people use their free speech to say icky things, it makes me think maybe, hey, Mr. Jimmy Madison, do you think maybe you could put something in there about not saying icky stuff around Talon? But there's flaws. There's flaws in all the laws. But I do want to talk about this comedy night without ever having to say the name of it.
We don't need to. We could
or
just
hear
say my Wednesday comedy show.
and I like that one.
Every Wednesday, we're coming up on 81 shows in a row. 81 shows.
Wow.
Except for we took Christmas Eve off because, I got kids and stuff.
And I think, and we've talked about this on this show before, Christmas is the most important day of the year, and I think it's important to assign it so much reverence and to treat it as more important almost than every other day combined, I think.
That's a lot. That's a lot of days. Like that's like isn't there 365? I get 365 and 360 confused because 365 is how many days there are, and like 360 is like a trick, right?
It is true. Well, it's if you do it, you can do a 365 as a trick, but you might end up falling because your wheel would catch.
Yeah, you go a little too far.
A little bit too far.
It seems like they should just have 360 days, but then eventually summer would turn into winter because it would wouldn't it?
You know what? And that's what I think maybe is we hear all this nonsense about global warming, and I hear it, and
you don't think global warming's nonsense?
Well, and this is one of those things where I think that there are truths that people witness, but they don't have all the information they need to come to the right conclusion. So you look at this, you think maybe I think this could be a really good point that you're making, is that maybe our years are the wrong lengths. So the reason suddenly it's getting hot at this weird time or cold at this weird time really isn't because of driving cars and driving ships and doing other fun, cool things, but it's really more because the mathematicians over at Big Calendar got something wrong a long time ago and they don't want to fess up to it.
Wait, you're telling me you think global warming is a thing because summer and winter are like switching?
Well,
that the years are too short or too long, and that we're like looping around too far.
exactly. And
But
really,
wouldn't winter get warmer then?
and it has been. I remember.
Wait, no, wouldn't winter would get cold? Wait, summer would get colder and winter would get warmer. Like that's how it would work if that was if what you're saying is true. If it's just the season switching, but everything's good. Like winter's getting warmer, summer's good. At least that's what like the scientists, a lot of them say.
Well, and you know, and I think we've kind of tracked down, building off of your basic concept that they're wrong. You know, I like your idea about the rhythms being off, because it's so much more often that it's math's fault than the earth and the weather.
Wait, can you assign like math a fault? Like that doesn't seem like something that like it can't seem like math can be at fault for anything. Like people can do math wrong.
Yes, exactly. It's like, well, you know, and maybe I misspoke. You know what I actually did misspeak? You know what I reminded myself of is those people who say that war is bad. You know, and they were saying war is bad. Oh, stop the war. And saying, okay, well, maybe some dumb war is bad, but war itself is good. So I guess kind of I agree with you in that way of like math, there's uses for it, but if you put it into the hands of the wrong person, suddenly you're faced with this situation where summer's in the middle of winter and it's hailing, and you have to take a snowball into Congress to to wake people up.
I saw that when you said that you didn't think global warming is real. I thought about that guy in his snowball.
Oh, yeah, well,
And then he brought it in, and didn't he like drop it or something?
Oh,
like,
he threw it, and his form was excellent. If you watch the video in slow-mo frame if he wouldn't have gone into senating, starting pitcher for the Yankees, I swear.
think so?
Swear to gosh, it was a really impressive form. I recommend everybody go back and look at that.
I'm glad that you seem to really have a lot of ideas about global warming, which is strange because like I mean science is hard, you know. Like I'm not very smart. I'm good at talking. I grew up in a really rough neighborhood and we didn't have time to like for math or science and stuff. We were like running from dogs all the time and stuff. I ran from more dogs than I did like read books or anything. And like but I just kind of trust scientists because I know they're good at it. The same way I trust like when I go to buy a cake, I don't like tell the baker, I'm like, I don't believe you're a baker. I just buy a cake, you know? And that's the same thing with science. Is like, if a scientist says, oh, hey, Sam, the earth's getting warmer. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. That sounds scary. And then like another scientist, he's like, that other scientist was right. And like 20 of them do that. And then one of them's like, oh, I don't know. Like it's probably getting warmer, dude.
Well, I want to respond to that in a couple of ways, and I value what you said so much, because one thing is that now that I know you're from a scrappy upbringing, I respect you so much more, because that's really, I think, what America's about. It's about people who were in scrappy places being in better places. It's about upward mobility and people having a chance.
I don't really know if I feel comfortable. Like the reason why I'm doing well has nothing to do with how bad it was. Like there's no, like I'm basically just lucky.
Oh, and I think that's a big part of it, because I think you have to, you know what they say, the old saying that goes, luck is 99% perspiration, 1% preparation. And so, you know, nowhere in there is luck. So really, you didn't just come across this luck. You know, that's what people always say. They always say, oh, these people are billionaires because they were lucky, that capitalism is this big lottery, and that really that humans all come up with ideas in waves and we all share all of our knowledge, but that certain people are lucky to get to capitalize on it and become very rich. And I say, well, I'm one of them, so I don't see what's wrong with it.
I was actually thinking about capitalism the other day.
As you should every day. And I recommend that everyone out there does. But continue.
I was at a Mariners game, and
Go M's.
yeah, they're doing really well right now. And a guy hit a foul ball behind me, and there was like this weird 15-year-old kid in front of me, and he went after the foul ball. And he didn't get it. It was way too far away, and there's too many people between him and the ball. He came back down. He was all sad, and he looked at me, and he was like, I was going to get it, but then some other guy got it. And I was like, that's just like capitalism. Like, I would have a lot of money, except everybody else already got a bunch of the money.
Well, you see, and I see what you're saying, and I understand the internal logic of your statement, but I think it represents a certain misunderstanding of capitalism and of baseball to a certain degree, because Because you see, this kid is running off trying to find a foul ball. Okay, put that on YouTube, see how much or put that on eBay or wherever you kids are selling your things, see how much that's worth. No, you get a spot. You get a spot where the home runs go. And you get a really big, like a basket, like one of those nest chairs that people have in their dorm rooms, and because it looks kind of like a mitt. And what you do is you bring that and you hold that in front of you.
To get baseballs to sell on eBay.
Yes.
But that kid though, that's the thing, is that that ball means a lot to that kid though. It has
And I think that's you're getting to a good point here, because when we're looking at the people who aren't, as you would call it, lucky, those are the people who are running around chasing foul balls. You know, you only get lucky enough to catch a home run ball if you're sitting in the home run section.
But the home run section is like the worst part of the stadium. You're like the farthest away from the action. Those are the cheapest seats.
And I think that's something that's so important, is because when being very rich isn't as good as everyone thinks. We have to take a certain sacrifice, but it puts us in this position where good things come to us, because you're carrying so much more of the burden, but at the same time the eventual payoff of catching a Mark McGwire homer right in your hand.
Yeah, that's fucking sounds bad, man. I'm sorry. I'm glad I'm not rich. Not even close.
Oh, you will be one day.
Yeah.
You will be one day. That's the thing. And people need to remember this, is that, you know, obviously there's a ton of money in podcasts, but stand-up comedy is another profession where you put in your 6 months at an open mic, you get your spot on Leno, and then suddenly ring a ring, you have to get a second phone because they're coming for you. They're trying to give you all the money.
Yeah.
So if you thought about what your show's going to be called in a couple months when you get picked up,
like my Comedy Central show.
yes, or network if you want to dream big. If you don't want to sit in the foul ball section, anymore, you're gonna try to get that baby on CBS where people watch.
Oh, geez, I don't like to get ahead of myself too much. I think I'm really funny. I think I'm really good at comedy. But there's a lot of other people that are really good at comedy. And they're kind of like, it's kind of like planes trying to land at an airport, and the airport's like is owned by like this prick who only likes one type of plane, and it's the one that flies.
Well, but let me I as much as I think that's a great metaphor, I just want to say, as someone who's a personal friend with the CEO of literally every airline, that at least one of my friends is going to be offended by that, and I'm not going to stop you, but I need to stand in so that when
I didn't say anything bad about airlines.
But I'm just saying, maybe they're the PRIC word that
and
you use.
Prick isn't like a bad word.
I think that's a word for a little wiener, and I think that some of the people that you might be calling that might not want to think of themselves as that.
Well, I mean, it's not just a word for a little wiener. It could be like, I don't know, there could be like a big prick. That'd be like a bigger wiener, right?
You have me there. I think they can deal with it. I think Chuck and the boys are going to be fine. But yes,
Wait,
you were talking about Chuck at the airport. Anyway, you were talking about all you comics. You all are flying your private jets because you have your shows and you're trying to go to the airport. I was following.
Dude, you got a weird idea of like what comedy is, and also like where I fit into this scenario you've created. Because I run an open mic in Olympia, and like I made $150 this week, and I did 4 shows.
Okay, you see, you're giving me an idea, and that is the reason I want to have comedians on here, because for me, everything that I'm saying on the show is so very serious, and my life is kind of spent just saying true things with no kind of under meanings or double entendre or any of these kind of...
I don't know what you just said. What's a double entendre?
It's the French pronunciation of double and tender. So I was trying to kind of keep it, authentic. They say a double entendre is when something has 2 meanings. So if
you said earlier, you're like, oh, I really appreciate like your tough, scrappy upbringing, and then you say shit like double entendre or whatever. Like, how do you expect to relate to me on that level?
Oh, well, I actually did grow up in the mean streets as well. I don't always like to talk about it just because it was very...
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Centralia, Pennsylvania, small town in central Pennsylvania. Population about 35 when I grew up there.
You grew up pretty hard though.
I grew up pretty hard, yeah. There's wild dogs were working their way into the town during my youth. So I would do these things where I'd be walking. I'd be walking from the creek where they would set up the school that I went to as a kid, and on the way back from the creek, I would, which we called a crick back then, but I'd be walking back on the streets, like I was saying, the mean streets, and the reason the streets were so mean is because these dogs would come after me and they would try to take me away.
I don't know if you're because I was talking about dogs earlier too. I said that I got chased by dogs and stuff, and I was being serious. Like, I would walk past my neighbor's house and I'd be like, "Is that gate open?" And then I'd fucking run.
Well, and that's why I didn't want to bring it up, because I didn't want to kind of take the wind out of your sails, because you're getting chased by these kind of owned dogs. You know what I mean?
It was owned by a meth dealer.
And I'm sure like Lassie and her friends Milo and Otis were scary as they were chasing you.
It was like a crazy German large dog, like one of them ones with them pointy ears.
Well, I don't see dogs' ethnicities, and I don't see how that makes them more dangerous or less dangerous. But I'm not saying that wasn't scary for you. I'm sure it was.
No. It's not the dog. I don't dislike the dog because it was German. I dislike the dog because it was trying to bite me. And the fact that you're colorblind to dog races.
Oh, no, not dog races. I can see that from a mile away. Just ethnicity, it just doesn't stand out to me. It's like, I can tell the broad groups, but it's once you get smaller than that I start to kind of lose track.
Okay, man. Dang. I don't know, man. I'm sorry that there's like wild dogs. Do you know what kind of dogs are? You know what the ethnicity of the wild dogs were?
Well,
so hip on dog ethnicities?
Centralia, Pennsylvania has this coal fire burning under it. It's this mile-long coal fire that's kind of engulfed the town in smoke, and the ground is very hot in certain places. So these are these kind of, they're not quite Chernobyl dogs, but they're probably, if you imagine it, somewhere between a Chernobyl dog and the dogs that were chasing you. It's probably in somewhere in between those two, because the coal fire, breathing that in, of course, strengthens the dog over the ones that do survive, are the strongest of the bunch.
The one episode of your show that I heard, you talk about how smoke strengthens things, that it's like that smoking cigarettes makes you stronger.
Well, for humans, coal smoke works on dogs. It's a kind of a different, because it's different, the science behind it, because you'll notice that human smoking, that's actually an act of fitness and an act of strengthening, whereas with the coal smoke, it doesn't strengthen the individual dog, it strengthens the population because it takes out the weak ones.
I quit smoking cigarettes.
And how about coal? How are we doing on coal?
I've never even been around coal burning. This is Washington, man. I grew up in Washington.
Oh, it's true. We power things with water out here, don't we?
Yeah, we got like the rivers push stuff, I think. I don't know how stuff works. I know the rivers are important.
I like powering things with fire instead of water, because if you look at the Captain Planet, the fire guy was the cool guy with his shirt half tucked in, and fire, I think, is very much like that.
I never watched that show. I don't really watch TV that much when I was little.
Very good, very good. It won how many Emmys? Can we get a check on that? Do we have the numbers on?
It was 2 for entertainment and 1 for documentary.
Okay, yes. So it was really great show, outstanding stuff. Now it has this. It's funny because people watch it and they think, oh, this is a show about environmentalism. But what they don't realize, it is a satire. It's kind of showing like, oh, do you ever notice how people who are into environmentalism are all kind of weird and dumb and have green mullets? And that's what I've always said about people who are into environmentalism.
Wait. You think that Captain Planet was like they were trying to make fun of? It's satire.
Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. Is he's this kind of exaggerated, goofy character, and I'm not normally a fan of satire. I want to go on record as saying that. I think satire is a kind of a lowly form of comedy, but in that particular instance, when you combine it with the bright, moving colors and the songs,
I'm sitting here like when you first said that, I was like, man, that's stupid. But like I actually thought about it, and I still think it's pretty stupid. But like I also could see how there's like a little part of it that might not be totally stupid. There's like some of it is like pretty. Yeah, that's something. Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool that you think it too. Because, like, a lot of people think lots of stuff, and I've never heard anybody that thinks that. So that's pretty cool.
And it's strange that you interrupted me because I was going to say the exact same thing, almost word for word. And that's what it's nice because you get into this interview, you get and you start to get on the same page. And since we're starting to get on the same page, I want to bring up something that I think is important to both of us, which is parenting. You are a father, I understand.
I sure am, man.
And how many little rugrats do we have running around over there?
I got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh, fun ages. Fun ages.
Yeah.
I remember my wife telling me how much fun our little one was at 2. We kind of had this goofy thing where she would, Will's daddy, Will's daddy. And it's, but she was pronouncing the letters wrong.
She was trying to say, where's daddy?
Maybe, I don't know, but it was this weird
But
little
they say
thing,
it
and you
weird
think-
because they can't talk very well. They're like,
you
Wales,
little-
yeah.
You're half animal,
Wales.
half person. You can't
It
even
sounds like
speak
she's saying Wales daddy. Like,
yeah, and
like
you think,
her
what,
daddy,
do
she
whales
thinks,
even have dads?
yeah, she thinks her dad's a whale because
I
she's.
know.
Was she? You weren't around. A
Well,
lot? Like,
I'm
apart?
around. See, my house is separated into 2 halves. Just due
like
to
a
some
duplex. I live in a duplex.
kind of like a duplex, except it's. I made. Have you in back before you were sober? Maybe with soda pop or Hawaiian punch or something. Have you ever made a can door where you kind of stack cans up and you make a wall out of them in the door? Well, our house, it was a regular house, but then I took the roof off of one side and I put up the can wall, and so there's this little hole between them. But families live in all sorts of different ways.
Wait, you built a can wall.
A can wall, yes.
A canned wall between you 2 halves of a house, and you took the roof off the other half that you're not in, and your family's there, and you don't see them.
As much as maybe some people do, but when you look at the American models of parenting, here's the thing: is that people come to me and they say, "Oh, you're not parenting like everybody else. That must be such a bad thing." And you know what I say? Oh, because these kids are turning out so gosh darn well. I mean, they're all.
How old are your kids now?
We've got 3, 5, and 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got like a 5-year-old too.
One boy, 2 girls. Yeah. 7 girl, Dakota. 5 boy, Tanner. 2 girl, George Bush Jr.
Wow, that's a bold name.
Well, yes.
That's cool though, man. I'm like the same thing with gender, where it's like,
Oh, exactly.
Like,
it's like
loosey goosey. It's a social
um,
construct.
it's just and so is government, which is and I think why can't we just break down all these walls? Maybe maybe if we get rid of gender, and so we're kind of saying by doing that nothing really matters anymore, and everything that's been real forever isn't real anymore. So when we do that, maybe we say, oh, hey, IRS. Maybe the IRS, should go the way of
Follow suit.
he and she as pronouns.
I mean, yeah. I just think that's just an interesting name, and I'm sorry that you don't get to see your kids as much as you'd like, or I don't know, maybe you see them as much as you like. I'm
do,
really involved in my kids' lives. I love being a dad. It's really hard, but I love it.
Okay, and I'd like to get input. So when you'd say monthly, we're talking how many hangouts here?
How many hangouts?
How many
do I have?
hangouts in a month?
It's not like a hangout kind of thing, man. It's like they're gonna wake me up tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning by climbing on my face kind of thing. It's not fun.
And this is something you do because do you have an alarm clock, or did you train them?
It
for
doesn't
that,
matter
or?
if I have an alarm clock or not because they climb on my face before it goes off. They
Okay.
are alarm clocks. I don't need an alarm clock.
Well, you see there, your kids. I think getting them to work, getting them functional, and it's even if it's something like that where you can kind of just direct the behavior they already have.
I don't know, man. I think the kids. It's really hard. It's really hard being a dad, and it's really hard being a good dad. Like, that's where people mess up. I didn't want one of my kids is on purpose, and the other one's an accident, and the accident one was first, and we didn't want him to be weird, so we had an on purpose kid to make them less weird.
Well, my mom always told me you were an accident, not a mistake. And that's, I think, an important lesson for kids to know is that sometimes.
Yeah, I could see that. That's a good way to put it. Like, I say accident to you guys, but I would never like tell him that he was an accident.
Oh, she told me that. She told me that very young because I said to her, Mommy, did you want me? And she said, well, no, not at all. But I'm so glad that I have you.
That's what she said to you.
Yes, and
That's really touching, actually.
It
I was
actually-
really surprised that you just said that because you said all this other stuff since I've been here. And it seems like that moment there could be like taken out of this and actually be like a real thing of beauty.
Well, what was good is it taught me that she loved me because I had become good enough by age 3. I had kind of built my profile, and that's what the problem with my kids is that I'm not wanting to.
Wait, you built like a profile, like as in like a set of like skills.
Skills,
And visibility.
values, kind of things that make me fun at parties, that kind of stuff. And so my mother would say, "Oh, I love you for reasons," and that's what made.
What were you doing at 3 that was so fun at parties? Like because I take my 2-year-old to parties and it's awful. Like he just runs around and screams at people.
I did the whole Frank Sinatra every song he ever wrote, sing it, play it on piano.
Whoa. At 3?
At 3 years old, yeah. Well, it was because I was drinking a martini when I was 2, and my dad said, wouldn't it be funny if he was singing a Frank Sinatra song while he's drinking that martini? It would look just like a little Frank Sinatra. So we put me to work learning these songs, and my mother would say, I'm so glad you're here to bring this beautiful music into our home, and that taught me that I need to constantly
Do
be doing.
you still play? Do you still do it?
Oh, just a little bit, but not any more than that without paying.
It wasn't bad. It was just a little tidbit. But
That was the audio. The audio is probably off on that. It was pitch perfect in the studio. I have a little.
yeah, it sounded weird in my headphones.
Yeah, I have
but-
perfect pitch in my ears though, and I can assure you that was right on the money. So I want to ask you, because this show does veer into the political occasionally, and we haven't really touched on anything too political so far. But what I would want to ask you is if there's any big political issue for you of the day, something that really gets your motor going that you'd think you'd want to talk about a little bit before we hang up the headphones.
Well, I don't like to think about politics on too broad of a sense, but I used to do, like I said, I've been sober for almost 8 years, and before that I got locked up a lot, and it kind of made me a different sort of person, and maybe not like the best sort of person sometimes, and it's taken me a long time to like get rid of violent tendencies and stuff, and I'm doing really good now. But yeah, prison abolition, man, like changing prison into a different kind of place where people don't get where we don't make people worse or help them.
So if there's and I think that's it's such a valuable issue from someone whose life has been affected by it, and that really touches me in my heartstrings, and it makes me wonder, what do you think would be a good thing if you could do a change in the prisons? If you could maybe licorice Wednesdays or something. If you could think of one thing that would have really been better in there in the clink?
The fact, like, okay, so it's not Licorice Wednesdays. We can start like kind of anything where it's like a food that you're thinking of with a day after it isn't going to be like a thing that I give a shit about in prison. Like we used to get, when I was in the Yakima jail, we'd get turkey legs once a month and it was amazing. But we were still very unhappy. And it actually was the strangest thing is because all the other meals were worse by comparison. Like the fact that they gave us these turkey legs once a month made the not turkey legs the other 29 days like that much worse. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean.
It's kind of like earlier when you called you and you were like, I'm the right size. And you created a contrast that like, I'm too big. It's like by saying that this is a really good treat for you and then it's like all the other ones are
Well,
worse.
the ironic part of that is that you're actually the perfect size for a turkey leg, and you have that big beard, and it's kind of this thing where I'm thinking, oh, is he going to tell me some jokes, or is he going to chop off one of his wives' heads? You have this kind of thing going on, and it's kind of medieval, and I think that's very neat. So maybe
I respect the fact that you're actually talking to me frankly about like stuff like prison. A lot of people kind of jump around it. It's like they get scared of me when I start talking about prison stuff.
Oh, no, 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 no. One thing you'll find out about me is that I'm not scared of much. And most of those things aren't things like jail and, and talking about it.
You ever been to jail?
I have been to a jail. Yes, I was at the groundbreaking of a certain new facility that I'm investing in.
Wait. You're investing in a jail.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm investing in it because there's very good. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people don't. There's actually really good money to be made.
Dude, dude. All right. That's cool, man. Making money off that, Like, God, I'm so grossed out now. I feel like I'm going to throw up.
Well, and okay, maybe you don't understand, but investing is where you put a small amount of money in, and then later on, the
I know, man.
business
I know
makes
how
all this
dude,
money,
I'm
and then they
not-
give you more money back. So
I don't know what double entendre means, but I know what like investment means, man. Like that's where you think that it's a good idea to spend a little bit of money on a prison now because you're going to make a lot of money on the back end. Like the prison's going to be worth more.
Well, yeah, because of all the people they're going to put inside of it.
Man, like all that stuff, like, you could go to prison. You know that? Like anybody can go to prison. Like probably not you because you're like white and seems like you're really conservative.
Very rich as well. Don't
Yeah, that's going to be
I
huge.
am loaded.
Yeah, but the someone you love could get locked up at any moment.
No, I know, and that's why I from everything I've been made to feel, I'm investing in the best. And so you're talking about these changes you might want to make. I think you said
No, the change I want to make is to stop building them. Like it's funny. I'm talking about prison abolition, and you're like, oh, what about a change? What if we have wacky Wednesdays? And then you're talking about investing in a prison and to build one. And then you're like, let's build one. So you can do your days in there. You know, Wacky Wednesday and Taco Tuesday. And
we can do the turkey legs too. I think that was a good idea. I think it's good. We're collaborating on this. But, if you have any more, if you give me a list of things that you think would be good ideas for the place, I don't know what else I can do at this point. I mean.
Yeah. You know what, man? I don't really have any ideas for you and your little like prison plan or whatever. It's just gross. It's just a gross thing to do. To say like I understand like that people invest in things and that's the way the country works and that you can even invest in the idea that something won't work, Like if I was you, I wouldn't be investing in prisons right now because it seems like a lot of other folks are like maybe prisons aren't as good of an idea because they're not working. Like there's data that backs this up now that it's so much easier to keep track of data now with the internet and
well, I think like Data was just saying, kind of weird that you're referring to yourself in the third person, but he does have kids, so he can call himself that. But I do think, I think you made some.
No, man, I look into this stuff. Like I'm a college student now. Like I'm actually doing really well. I'm actually in a class about prison. I've been writing about prison for 6 months. I wrote about prison riots. I wrote about guards sponsoring fights between inmates. And now I am looking into the prison industrial complex, which is what you're talking about investing in. And it's funny because I thought I was just going to come in here and talk about comedy, but now you're talking about all this prison shit. Like you kind of know what's going on and think that theme nights would be a great idea and would help solve issues in prison.
Well, I was kind of just throwing it out there, something I thought might be fun because I know you know what you're talking about, and I for one am taking all this information in. I do have a question though. You said you're a college student. Now, you said you're sober as well. So do you have to pretend to smoke reefer in your classes when you're doing your class discussions, or do they let you pass?
I don't care
away?
about weed, man. Weed's boring, man. I don't care if anybody does any drugs. I just don't do them. And if anybody doesn't want to do them too, like I'm in recovery, so and I don't care if people do drugs, man. And I don't care if they think I do or don't, really. So drugs are just drugs, man. People have been doing drugs for as long as there's been people. So
Well, I think I have a certain great grandma and grandpa named Adam and Eve that would disagree, but we're running out of time, so I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. Thanks for bringing the funny and your ideas that some people might find a little offbeat, but I think have a place in the conversation. And I think I think it's very interesting that you talk about he made the opinion known, and I'm not one. You can disagree with me. He says investing in prisons is a gross. Now, remind everyone the name of your comedy show, please, as long as we're talking about things that are actually gross.
Vomity, man. It's every Wednesday, downtown Olympia at the Voyeur, 9 p.m. Vomity, 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 vomity. It's a great show. And my name's Sam Miller, and I'm a great comedian, and I'm really glad you had me here. And I'm usually a lot funnier than this. I kind of feel like I said, I just feel really gross now.
Right, you can follow Sam online at...
Yeah, you can follow me at Twitter, Tummy Sticks, Sam Miller, Tummy Sticks. I'll tell you what Tummy Sticks is after the show.
I just want to clear something up. We had such a fun day today with Samuel Miller. We learned about how much he loves turkey legs and how one day he hopes to buy a private jet with his money from stand-up comedies, and I think that's so fun and nice. But one thing that kind of slipped through the cracks during this episode was when I was talking about my living arrangements and the way that my house is separated between the roofless side and the side with the roof. There was a little bit of confusion on Sam's part, and Sam's kind of a low speaker, so I didn't quite pick up on it. And I want to clarify, because I would never make my wife and kids live on a side with no roof if they didn't want to. I live on the side with no roof. So I want to throw to a clip from an old episode that could explain a little better than I feel like explaining right now. Because you think about how much money you spend on your showers a month. For me, it's, probably $300-400. I have someone who pays my bills for me, but I obviously provide the money, but someone takes care of all that. But you spend all that money on water, and you're thinking, hey, why did I just have a roof? Why am I buying my water from the government when God is trying to get it to me through the top of my house? And so that's why, my house, it's half of it has roof, half of it doesn't. My wife is traditional, and she likes to have the portion with the roof, and she says the parts that don't, they get moldy, and everything is wet and ruined. And I say to that, you know what? I'll buy another one. If it gets too wet, if the TV stops working, we'll buy another one. We'll go to Walmart. We'll buy another one. All right, that's why they're making the stuff every day. And this is the thing. My wife, she cares about kids. She cares about children's issue. And I say, if we're not buying a new TV every 3 or 4 months, you're putting kids out of work. These kids that build these TVs, they got families to feed. Oh, I sound so young in that clip. Well, I'm glad we got that cleared up, folks, and I'm glad you stuck around. So I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at TalonItLikeItIs. For new content and updates, visit boiledsprat.com/TalonItLikeItIs. See you next week.